See bro, I had a bad feeling about even coming here. Now something like this happens, man, the past few weeks of my life have felt like a never-ending nightmare. Just one thing after another. Not only am I stranded on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, I just talked to AAA and they said it's gonna take them 3 hours to get here. Look, I don't know what lesson life could be trying to teach me right now, but whatever it is, man, I've had enough. I guess since I got so much spare time on my hands, I might as well go ahead and make myself comfortable. After a crazy season at FSU, I needed an escape, so I decided to use some of my NIL money and take a nice vacation to the Bahamas. I also paid for my parents to come as well, as kind of a thank you for everything they've done for me over the past few years. I promised myself while I was on vacation not to get on social media and not to think about football. Well, I did pretty good for the first few hours, but I eventually gave in and started scrolling on Twitter. Yeah, I wanted to see what posts people were making about me throughout the season, but I wasn't on there too long because it wasn't too interesting. Anyways, that night, I laid in my bed thinking about what my next move should be. I mean, as I said before, FSU was good to me, and Coach Norvell and I seem to be building a pretty good relationship. As a matter of fact, at the end of the season, he called me into his office for a quick meeting. He just wanted to see where my head was at.
TJ, thanks for stopping by. I just wanted to touch base with you and see where your head was at now that the season is over.
Man, Coach, I'll be honest, I love it here, and I think this is a tremendous program. I feel like things really started to come together towards the end of the season, but as far as next season, I honestly don't know. I'm just hoping that you're able to bring in some more weapons for me to use offensively. That's really been my main concern.
Okay, great. So it sounds like we're on the same page. Myself and your coaches plan to hit the transfer portal really hard this offseason and bring in more talent on that side of the ball. Look, TJ, I just want you to know you're my guy for next season, okay? You have my word.
After meeting with Coach and him giving me his word, I knew my next stop had to be to talk to my receivers. As I said last episode, there was a lot of tension between them and myself, so I just wanted to smooth things over. They addressed a few of their concerns and I addressed a few of mine. When it was all said and done, I think we came to a pretty good understanding. Now, unfortunately, I can't say the same for me and DJ. I mean, I tried to talk to him and just basically tell him this is my team now and he needed to embrace being my backup. But as you're about to see, he wasn't going for it.
Dog, are you stupid? You threw more interceptions this year than you did touchdowns, bum ass nigga. The only reason you even got to play is because I got injured. Otherwise, you'll be on the sideline holding coach's nuts. Man, miss me with that shit.
Man, bro, they trying to tell me my head gasket blew and it's going to be $175 for the repair and installation. Not only that, but I already had to pay $150 just for them to tow it here to the shop. Plus, once it gets repaired, I still got to drive another 2 hours to get to campus. Man, bro, today has already been a long day and sadly, it's just getting started. I knew DJ wouldn't take the news very well and I expected his reaction, but it didn't matter because Coach had already given me his word that I was his guy. After I got back from that vacation I just mentioned, I got straight to work. Over the entire offseason, I worked on increasing my speed and agility and also my arm strength. Those improvements showed early on throughout camp, and I was clearly the favorite for QB1 going into the first game of the season. There was a lot of tension in the quarterback room. I mean, I had already secured my starting spot, so I was chilling, but I oftentimes would catch DJ mugging me and making these weird faces. I don't know if he was trying to intimidate me or what, but as you can see, man, I wasn't worried about nothing. My pops always told me when you great, you gonna have haters. I mean, I tried to make peace with Buddy, but he wasn't going for it, so I just felt like, hey, if it's smoke, then so be it. The first game of my sophomore season came at home versus Southern Miss. Now, I had complete confidence in my receivers as this was pretty much the same group that I had last year, so this was our second year playing together. But our offensive line, we added several new pieces, so I was a little bit more concerned about them and how they perform. But look, our first drive down the field, we had a little bit of trouble moving the ball and we would end up having to settle for a field goal. But our second drive was the complete opposite as we were able to move the ball up the field with complete ease. The blocking up front was amazing and I actually had time to sit and progress through my reads. But look, we had the Golden Eagles defense in retreat all the way up the field. That's when I would go on to throw my first touchdown of the season. On the second play of the very next drive, I would step up in the pocket and make a huge connection over the top of the defense for an 86-yard touchdown. Man, at that point, we were deep in our bag and firing on all cylinders, but Just as it looked like we were beginning to pull away, I would get struck by that old turnover bug. While attempting to scramble outside of the pocket, I got sacked and unfortunately I fumbled, putting Southern Miss in great position to go on and tie the game. Tie game with 54 seconds left, the Golden Eagles would commit a huge face mask penalty which moved us right outside the end zone. Well, that's where I would go ahead and hand the ball off for the game-winning touchdown. I mean, other than that one costly turnover, I played great and we were officially off to a 1-0 start to the season. Our next game, we'd be on the road for our first big test, the LSU Tigers. Now this game was extremely important because at this point in the season, we were both undefeated. And we all know how one loss can be a death blow to the team's morale. Our first drive down the field, we looked completely unstoppable and the Tiger defense looked confused. Now coach pulled everybody in the huddle before the game and he instructed us all to play fast and aggressive. Well, that's exactly what we did as we were able to march down the field and strike first with a touchdown. Although this was only our second game of the season, man, our defense was looking like it was shaping up to be the best in the nation. They forced a turnover in the LSU red zone, putting the ball back into our hands. Now this was the perfect opportunity to try to go for a 2-for-1. We still had so much time left on the clock that I knew if we can get a quick score, we'd eventually get the ball back again before halftime. Well, I was trying to channel my inner Patty Mahomes and make an unbelievable play, but my receiver wasn't where he should have been and he made me throw an interception. Not only that, but the ref said I made an illegal forward pass on the play, so yeah, it was just all bad. Even though my 2-for-1 attempt resulted in an interception, we still got the ball back right before halftime, just like I said would happen. We only had just over 30 seconds to get into the end zone, and I wasn't settling for no field goal, but I was willing to open my thighs to get us a touchdown. I scrambled outside of the pocket and I got us right outside the end zone, and then I threw for a quick touchdown, giving us the 2-score lead. Now that touchdown would end up being the game winner as it was the final touchdown that we scored on the day. Luckily, our dominant D was able to hold the Tigers to just one score as we were able to secure the 14-7 victory on the road. Our next game, we be back on the road versus Boston College. Bro, I ain't gonna lie to you, this one was tough. I mean, we struggled from the very first snap. We had dropped passes, missed blocking assignments, tackles for loss, the whole nine. Now, I don't know if we were just overlooking them or maybe we was just feeling ourselves because we were coming off the win versus LSU. Whatever it was, man, I don't know, but it got pretty ugly there for a second. We wouldn't score our first touchdown until midway through the second quarter, bruh. I saw a huge hole in the middle of the defense, so I took off for a 20-yard touchdown. Of course, Boston College struck right back to regain the lead, but we'd start our next drive off with a huge run up the middle of the field, and it started to feel like the momentum was shifting a bit in our favor. Well, that's when I got completely pounded into the mattress by the D, resulting in a 4th and 20. We were down on our knees, but certainly not out. We needed to score quick, so I knew when I stepped back onto the field, all my passes had to be towards the end zone. Just when we needed it the most, I would connect with my tight end JB for a touchdown, cutting the lead down to just one score. 45 seconds left with perfect field position to tie the game. I dropped back in the pocket and unfortunately, I would take another huge sack, resulting in a 16-yard loss. But I was able to get some of that back on 3rd down. 4th and 12 on what would be our final chance to tie the game, I threw an interception to the back of the end zone, but only because my receivers couldn't make the play. Now, I know y'all gonna say that's my fault, but I mean, I did my job by getting the ball to the end zone. It's their job to come down with it. But nonetheless, we went on to lose our first game of the season on the road by only 7 points. Coming off that loss, surprisingly, the team seemed to still be in a very good space. Now, I certainly don't speak for everybody, but I truly feel like we didn't get beat by a better team. Nah, I feel like we just beat ourselves, and sometimes those are the worst losses you can take. Nonetheless, there were still games to be played, so we had to shift our focus to our next opponent, the Virginia Tech Hokies. This was actually one of those rough and rugged, hard-fought games. Yeah, there weren't very many points scored as both teams' defenses refused to give an inch. Now, I had a lot of success this game on the ground. I mean, credit to the Hokies, they had a tremendous zone coverage, so every time I seen them dropping back into that zone, I'd be looking to take off and run. I broke off a huge 22-yard scramble that caught the defense off guard as they had our screen pass completely covered. Well, that run put us in perfect position to score, but unfortunately, my receiver couldn't make the play in the end zone even though I threw a perfect pass. Man, luckily our defense was able to come up with a very clutch turnover that secured us the 5-point victory at home. Rivalry week was upon us. It was time to eat and we had Gator on the menu. Now this game was extremely important to me because if you remember, My first time starting here at FSU was versus the Gators, and we lost that game by 2 points. So it was a must I got my lick back. All week across campus, students and teachers were coming up to me just trying to make sure I was locked in. I gave them my word that I wasn't coming back to campus without a victory over the Ops. This would be yet another hard-fought, low-scoring game. I mean, it really was a defensive battle that would come down to just a few key plays. Late in the fourth quarter, we were trailing by 3 points, but we were in perfect position to kick a field goal to tie the game. That's when I would make an excellent check down read to my halfback, and he was able to fight to score the touchdown, giving us the lead and eventually the victory as we were able to beat the Gators at the Swamp. At this point in the season, we were 4-1. The team was injury free for the most part, and there was a lot of buzz surrounding the program. Our next opponent was the Duke Blue Devils, who had already lost several games, but they were still definitely a dangerous team. Hey man, listen, I'm gonna go on record and say I think we had the toughest schedule out of every school in college football. I mean, every team in the ACC conference is a threat, so you can never really let your foot off the gas. We knew we couldn't afford to play with this team or take them lightly, so we came out swinging, jumping on the Blue Devils early with the touchdown on our first drive, but credit to them as they were able to go down and answer right back with a touchdown of their own. Now, the thing I want you to keep an eye on in this game is how comfortable I was in the pocket. I had tremendous faith in my O-line, so that allowed me to play with patience as I was finally able to work through my reads and make the correct pass. It was in this game that everything seemed to come together. All summer long, we heard Coach talk about having a balanced offense and how once everything started to gel together, we would be completely unstoppable. Well, I think it's safe to say that we finally achieved that. I mean, the defense was doing their job keeping our opponents off the scoreboard for the most part, and our offense was perfectly in sync. We went on to beat the Blue Devils on the road by 10 points, and although the scoreboard may not have reflected it, we totally dominated on all sides of the field. And what would be the final game of my sophomore season, unfortunately would also be the start of my problems. We were hosting our arch rivals Clemson, and from the very start of this game, it was nothing but chaos. On the very first play, I took a huge sack that resulted in a fumble, but luckily we were able to regain possession of the ball. Then a few plays later, I took another big hit, but I was able to get the pass off. My receiver came down with it and ran home into the end zone. This was one of those highlight type plays because not only did my receiver catch the ball over the top of the defenders, but there was a pass interference call on the defense as well. Listen, I don't care what nobody says, bro. This game, I showed I'm not only the best player to ever play here at FSU, but I'm arguably the best player to ever play the game. Now, before you get all in your feelings, before you get all emotional, bruh, just watch the tape. I was making unbelievable plays all game over one of the best teams in the conference. I had just threw a touchdown to take the 1-point lead, then Clemson came right back and scored. We only had a minute and a half left, and that's when I threw a 50-yard Hail Mary that my guy came down with, putting us in perfect position to score and seal the victory. Well, that's when I would take a blindsided sack that caused me to miss the remainder of the game. We were going to lose to our rivals at home.